Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. It is time for my favorite treat of the week. It is time for some Obscurities in Literature. And today we've got a book that is part of a series, actually. And that is Pi International's Yokai Museum. So these are part of the Yumoto Koichi collection. And at this point, there's probably at least 3 or 4 of these books that have been released. But if you've watched this channel enough or listened to me ramble on for, more than 5 minutes, you probably are aware that I'm a big fan of books of monsters. And that's basically what this book is. It's just an old-fashioned monster manual. Let's be honest. And I'm absolutely here for it. So like I said, there's a couple of these books in this series. I want to say it's like Yokai Wonderland, Yokai Museum. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's all the more reason for you guys to go search this stuff out yourself afterwards, right? Anyways, this is a really cool book because if you're a fan of any kind of, traditional monster spirits, the essence of yokai, basically, these books have tons of it. And what they are is, rather than like a chronological accounting of every type, and I think if you want something like that, you'd probably want to go look at like Shigeru Mizuki's art books. And he's done tons of manga and just books based on yokai, and that's probably a better source. Maybe we'll do that one of these days, actually. We've got some of his books laying around, both in English and Japanese. So anyway, this is just a really cool book because Pi tends to put out lots of, number one, bilingual books, but number two, really cool art books. So right away you can see it is in both English and in Japanese, especially when it's in focus there. That usually helps. So that is kind of a cool touch, but the book itself is actually divided up into different types of sections. And I thought there we go. So here, much like how I've divided this channel into various types of obscurities, this book is actually divided into various types of yokai. So you have scrolls, you've got books, you've got like ukiyo-e or nishiki-e, you've got games and modern stuff. So it's not just old things, of which there are plenty. So we don't want to get you the wrong information here. But this book is just chock full of classic monster illustrations from Japan. This is a really, really famous one, The Night Parade of 100 Demons. So you get the size and stuff, you get kind of the time period when they came out, and a little blurb, again, both in English and in Japanese. This is a super duper famous one anyway, so if you're not familiar with The Night Parade, it's kind of cool to have this. And I want to say that this was the first book in the series, and I always feel like being the first book tends to be kind of the best, because, if you're going to shoot your shot, you want to make sure it hits. So I think a lot of the really good stuff tends to be in this. And again, it's kind of cool, there's some really weird, obscure yokai in this book, and I don't want to really get into it and give it all away, but that's kind of half the fun of going through this kind of a book. And again, most of the... I was going to say kaiju, that's not the right word. Most of the entries have both the Japanese and English names, so you can kind of get a feel for what you're supposed to be looking at. Some are in kanji, some are in hiragana. And there's just some very interesting characters in this. So we're still in the wall scroll section. I want to jump over to the prince. That is a tanuki covering himself from the rain with his balls. Yep. That's what they do. And there's just some cool assortments of stuff in this book. It's like kamaitachi. To me, it really starts to take off when you get into the, woodblock prints. Things just look really neat. The artist Yoshitoshi being a major artist behind a lot of the more horrific and spiritual, supernatural themed prints. And Yoshitoshi just did a lot of cool stuff anyways. This is a cool one of these like big multi-panel scenes. The colors. I've always been a big fan of ukiyo-e. Night Parade, except with foreigners causing trouble. Oops. Interesting political statements there. Getting into sets of cards and puzzles. Tsukushi. Tsukushi sounds familiar and I can't remember what that is. I'm jumping ahead as we get into like Kamishibai. There's a really cool book we actually did a video on earlier about Kamishibai. Oh yeah, that's right. In the back of this book we get into a section of, as I was saying, more modern interpretations of yokai, but we also get into yokai where they are not just on paper, but on clothing. Just kind of interesting. Close-ups of famous kimonos and stuff. From somebody's belt. Plates. Bowls, fans, knife handles, sword handles and hilts, guards. There's just a lot of neat stuff in this book. And again, half the fun is, I gotta say, of the various pie books that I've purchased over the years and flipped through, I do like the fact that most of this one is actually fairly well translated in terms of actually making sure everything gets done. There's a lot of them that tend to have various sections left incomplete, but I feel like this one especially gets most everything translated. And I mean, if you like yokai stuff, if you're looking for something different, I mean, and if you want to go straight to the source, again, it may not be the most academic book, of which I have some recommendations if that's what you really want, but from a visual and historical standpoint, and just kind of an interesting overview of the stuff, I think this is a really cool one. And you can probably find it for a fairly reasonable price, too. And hey, you know what? In the current economy, that's always a plus in my book, right? So anyway, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.